I could join. Welcome everyone. Here is our freelance panel. I'm Ben Holland-Arlen, staff product designer here at ServiceNow. I've been in design officially for 12 years and unofficially for a while longer, and early in my career spent the first 5 years mainly working as a freelancer, including organically starting my own little product design agency, which just came out of having a lot of work. And so I decided to do it, which was a really rewarding experience. But for me, I decided about 7-8 years ago to make the shift to full-time, which I've been doing since then for the most part. So that's me, and I'm just gonna go down the line and have everyone introduce themselves. And so over to you.
Thank you, Ben. I'm Gina McKinna. I am a freelance graphic designer and brand consultant. I've been freelancing for 11 years and have been doing graphic design a lot longer than that. So yeah, I made the switch from corporate to freelance in 2014 when I had my son, so priorities shifted. I just went all in, and I have not looked back since.
Hey everyone, I'm Christine. I am a UX research consultant. I got into the industry in 2019. Most of my experience has been with big tech companies. So I started out at Meta. I was in an incubator team, so I was working on brand new products, and it was kind of like a startup energy. So we don't know anything, but we needed to know it yesterday. So that was really exciting. And then for the past almost 2 years, I've been supporting a community team at Adobe where we support product and marketing teams with community-based research. It's traditionally under a marketing function, but we do a lot of UX research there too. And then I'm also the co-founder of San Diego UX Researchers. We're a local group trying to empower and bring the UX research community together. But we're welcome to anyone, and we have a lot of crossover with SDXD, so really grateful to be here.
Hi all. Hi, I'm Mary. I'm a product design freelancer and a bit of a generalist, but expertise in product design, product strategy, and user research. I've been in design for 10 years, mostly at early stage startups, and most recently with a focus in social impact organizations, and I've been freelancing for the last 2 years.
Hi everyone, I'm Harriet Wong. So I've been designing for 5-6 years. Originally, I came to SDXD to study computer science, and I found design. I really love it. So right now I work as a contractor for a team at Intuit. So I've been contracting for 2 years now. I want to say to this day. I found the role mostly because job market, and I got laid off from a startup that I was working at in LA, and I said, fuck it, I really like San Diego. So yeah, that's why I'm here. So yeah, if anyone have any any life lessons you want to share with me, I'm also really welcome to, because I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm from everybody here. So yeah.
Hello. I'm Daniela. I am a UX and website designer, and I've been doing UX for about to be my 3-year anniversary. I've been consulting my entire career. I graduated from boot camp at a time where the job market was not very good for juniors, so I got into freelancing, and and just made the switch from early childhood education into UX, and now am a full-time consultant.
Awesome. Well, hello. Okay. Thank you all for the intro. So I want to jump in and ask sort of a few intro questions before we get into more of the nitty-gritty. So let's just go down the line, or not necessarily in order, but what, in your opinion, is the best part about freelancing?
The work-life balance, for sure. You have and you get to create your own schedule, your own day-to-day, what that looks like. So yeah, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
I'll just add to that. I think like for me, I think about it as being able to live within my values, and two things that are really important to me is balance and integrity. And so on the integrity side, I get to choose my own clients, choose my own projects, and say like, no, I don't want to work on that. And then on the balance side, like obviously there's work-life balance. Also for me, I think about it in terms of like, I don't work 40 hours a week. I don't sit at my desk 8 hours a day. If my work is done, I'm done. And that leaves a lot of free time to do other things that I'm interested in, and spend my time other places, so.
I think as coming into it as a junior designer, it was cool to try out a bunch of different industries. So I get projects from all over the place and learn about UX opportunities that I didn't even think could exist. So working, with biotech, with law, with small businesses, and having the choice of who you get to work with.
Any other comments on that question?
Slightly less office politics.
Yeah. All right, well, we all know the next question that's coming. I won't say worse, but what are some of the challenges of being a freelancer?
So some things I didn't really think about before I jumped into consulting is that you're completely independent. So I have been a full-time employee before, I've been a W-2 contractor, and this is my first time being on a 1099. So what that looks like is you have your own equipment. You're not on a company laptop. You are making your own hours, but you're also not getting paid. There's no such thing as PTO or sick days. Like if you take time off, you're just not getting paid for it. And then also something that I really miss is having like the internal resources and support that I've had at other companies. So I'm having to do things, go out of my way to train myself. I don't have access to certain tools internally. I don't have access to community groups or research forums that I used to internally. So that's been a big switch. And then also just you don't get company benefits. So health insurance, 401k contributions. Yeah.
+1 to the health insurance. It's going up almost $100 this year. That's real.
I would say getting paid on time. So I half joke all the time that it's like I'm a part-time bill collector. And I've learned over the years there's actually I wouldn't say a good reason, but I figured out the reason why it's so hard sometimes getting paid as a freelancer, as a 1099 employee. It's because depending on the size and nature and structure of the company that you're working for, freelancers are literally always the last to get paid. Most of the time you can't be on the regular payroll. Sometimes you can't even be direct deposit. So you're relying on a real individual to look at your invoice, get it approved, manually cut you a check, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and actually get it in the mail, and then rely on the post office to deliver it to you. So there's like a good reason for that. So that's one of the downsides, is trying to hustle for your money.
Can I ask a quick
Yeah,
follow-up? So starting out, was it hard to, how do you figure out how to like set your rate?
I think that's an upcoming question.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
Yeah,
right there. It's
segue.
organic,
Yeah.
so we can go there.
Sure, yeah. How to set your rates, it's a really good question.
Yeah.
There's no one answer to it. It really depends on what your services are, what your level's at. A junior isn't going to set the same rates as a senior and all that. A good starting place is the Robert Half Annual Salary Guide. They put it out every year, and they survey people just like us all year long, and they put out that guide every year. I think it just recently came out. And what's nice about it is that it's set up by region. So like a junior designer in San Francisco is gonna make a different salary than in Utah. So they take that on, it's very comprehensive, very in all different industries for design. So that's really great. And the other one is just kind of, I call it reading the room. So, you know, if you're trying to set rates for a startup company, and they're not all built the same either. Sometimes startups have a lot of, you know, investor funds coming in. Other ones, it's like a mom and pop. They're not gonna have the big bucks to pay you, so you kind of, you know, you need to figure out what your lowest is. And I wouldn't suggest starting there, but kind of know where your cutoff is. Like, I'm not willing to go lower than X in order to pay my bills, so.
You gotta like fold that into like a contract or something.
We could talk all day about contracts, but yeah. I think half of my answers to this panel are contracts. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else
One thing that I learned recently about setting project rates, because when I started, I'd never been paid for UX at all before. I didn't have like an hourly rate or a salary that I used to get paid for UX to compare it to. So I talked to ChatGPT a lot because you can specifically say like, these are the things that I do and this is my skill level, like what's realistic, and get some idea on top of talking to other people. But if you aren't sure what your budget or your client's budget might be, or you're afraid you're gonna like lose the client because you're charging too much, or you're gonna get too little because you were too scared to say what you actually charge, I like to say like, I can do anything. These are the services I offer. I can do them at the most ideal, like perfect product that you want. And if that's out of your budget, then we can start paring stuff down and we can make it work for you. So in that way, you can have a little bit of flexibility in conversation with your client.
Yeah, I just, really great point that Daniela brought up is like kind of the balance. So I have an hourly rate that I set based on just doing research, market research, and then talking to other consultants. And so when I set project rates, I'll calculate how many hours I think each task is going to take. But I did run into a scenario recently where I was talking to someone about potentially subcontracting for them, and just the amount of hours we were too far apart. Like, I knew that even though it would have been great to establish a new relationship, a new client, do a different type of work, I knew that I would be miserable if I agreed to lower than what she was suggesting, or lower than the amount that she wanted to make it work. So I just decided not to. But yeah, it's a balance.
If you're just starting out, I don't know what your situation is, but if you have previous work experience, you can kind of use your salary plus some, because you're factoring in no 401k, no health insurance, that kind of stuff, and also the instability of contracting and freelancing. So I would factor that into your rates. If you're starting out and you don't have experience, if you're new to the field, I would recommend in this market, just take what you can get, honestly. I mentor a lot of people early in their career, and it's really hard out there. I would even recommend volunteering. I hate that I'm saying this, but it's just really tough. So if you're really committed to design and you're early in your career, like, you need the experience for your portfolio. Once you have like 3 projects, then I would commit to like, no, I'm not gonna volunteer anymore, I'm gonna get paid.
What would be the average rate if you have to say a number?
The average rate?
Like average number or a range
Gosh,
per hour?
It's so hard.
Yeah.
I can tell you my rate. I think we should talk about this kind of thing.
Yeah.
My hourly is 120. I've gotten paid up to 150 an hour. I was like, I got paid 150 and then I was not really able to get that rate again. Also, I said that number expecting them to negotiate and they didn't. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, great. But then I realized that it was like actually too high for a lot of people, and so I had to come down. But I got 120 because a few years ago I was interviewing for a contracting role with the ACLU, and they offered me 120. And I was like, okay, like the ACLU is like on their game in terms of like equality and like looking around and like fairly paying people. So I felt like that was like a good rate. That's obviously for, I have 10 years of experience. If you're just starting out, again, it just really depends. It really depends. I don't know, I don't really want to say a number because, again, you should just get the work that you can get and then build up from there.
Thank you. Do you depend on the rate based on the projects that you're getting? Do you increase or decrease based on that?
Can you say it again?
Do you base your rate on the project that you require? If it needs more skill, expertise?
Oh, okay. Do you change your rate depending on the project and like the skill set within the project? I have done that a little bit. Like I did a project for a client that was just solely research based, and I really wanted to work with her. And she was like definitely pre-revenue and like hadn't raised funds. And so she was basically paying me out of her own pocket, and but she was just working on a really cool project, and so I like basically halved my rate for her. Also, it was just research, no design. So again, like, yeah, I just really wanted to work with her, so I was like, yeah, I want to. There's other clients or like other people that I've interviewed with that were like, oh, we can only pay you like half your rate, and I was like, thank you.
And then sort of a follow-up question is, how do you determine if you're doing hourly or project-based rates? It was something, I'll just add, early in my career, I was always doing hourly, and then I discovered that sometimes worked against me. So yeah, I'm a moderator, so I'll pass it on.
This is a big debate in the design world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I think you have to like kind of live and learn through it. But for my experience was the opposite. I've pigeonholed myself with the project-based pricing. So I think what works for me usually is where if it's, granted, a lot of my clients are ongoing, so I don't do project-based. That's how I keep my flow, is where I have a handful of ongoing clients and it's at an hourly rate. But the other half is project-based stuff. They might be just, like one and done type projects. And they might want like an estimate, and that's where I can give a range, but I always disclose that it's based on my hourly rate. And if we go over, because then that also gives them an idea of like, this is based on 10 to 12 hours of work, they know what they're getting for that. And if it goes over, like for revisions, change in scope, extra things added on, then they know that aside, beyond that project, estimate, it'll be tacked on with my hourly rate. So that's the way it's kind of both, but I always come back to my hourly rate. But that just what works for me.
I agree with that, but I think you were the one who said contracts earlier. Like, contracts are so important, so that if you do set a project rate that goes way over, you have your hourly rate to fall back on. But I think it depends, because I have mostly had a lot of like one-off projects, and then I have some ongoing clients. So whenever I have those one-offs, depending on if it's a start to finish, very clear scope of work project, then the project rate usually works best for both the client and for me, to kind of wrap your head around what you're getting out of it. But then if I have this ongoing work, or if it's sort of a project that they're like, well, we want to do this, but then in 6 months we want to do this, and they're not exactly sure what they want out of it, then hourly is best. But always make sure you have everything in writing in every part of your scope of work, and if you need to make up multiple contracts, than do that, because it's very easy for people to tack other things on and expect you to do it within your original rate or project rate.
I've been mainly doing ongoing work for one client, so I'm hourly. I have done some one-off projects that were project-based. And something that I have tried to get before but wasn't successful is, but I think would be ideal, is a retainer. So if you're going to be doing ongoing work for someone, I think it's just best to get a retain, some base amount, so you have security, they can draw against it, and then it's nice to say that, like, in your contract, we'll withdraw against the retainer, but we want to maintain this retainer amount, so then there's always something, a safety net.
It's just
I want that.
something to add to that really quick is to trying to get 3 months out on the retainer, because then you're not just trying to put 3 months and have them sort of cut
That's
you
great.
short.
The more the better.
Yeah.
Most of my projects have been hourly but ongoing, so the contracts are
they're getting what they pay for, like you're seeing, that's assuming too if you're like at a higher level, but yeah, just, cause yeah, like for me, I work really quickly, so I can charge more, but a junior designer is gonna take twice as long, so it doesn't really work in their favor if they were gonna go that route. I have one note on the retainer part too. I haven't quite figured that out either, because and I've been doing this so long, but the couple times that it's come up for me, it personally didn't work for me, and it could have just been my client situations, but I think, and this is probably where the contract would have to be really spelled out and they would have to abide by it. But like, they just kind of start to use you in a sense of just an extension, because they have you on retainer, they can just expect you to be on demand during the work days, and I don't like that. Like, that's why I freelance. I like to go to the store if I want to go to the store, go get coffee, and not be like, oh, we have a meeting in 10 minutes, so I've run into those situations, which is why I've shied away personally from retainers, but I know that like they can and probably should be a good thing. I just haven't figured them out. I think it's probably just boundaries.
I think you do have to set them up. Like, I have a couple of retainers that it's like a maximum of 5 hours a month for this client for you to do maintenance for them. And then if they go over 5, then they pay my hourly rate. So if you set like a end, like you can't just use me 40 hours this month without paying for 35 hours that you didn't already pay for. So maybe that helps.
So we could talk finance all day. There's so much to unpack here, and we might come back to it, but I want to switch a little bit and understand how you get the work. And I'm especially curious for folks, I know early in my career I was getting my work primarily through staffing agencies, and then I discovered this not ideal thing, which is staffing agencies take a lot of money from you. Like, typically, at least when I was doing it, like 40 to 60%. But I'm curious if you have experience with that, but just in general, how are you finding work and building out those relationships?
For now, like I always find clients because of, I've just been doing this long, so it's always personal referrals. So you have one job, and if that ends, like, you don't let it end, like that relationship. The job might have to end, but you don't let the relationship end. So yeah, I've built my entire business like exclusively or primarily on personal referrals. Like, you really have to lean into your personal network, and even if you don't think that you have a big network, like you probably do, you just haven't really like opened your mind to it yet. So you have to get a little creative sometimes, but really leaning into that, because yeah, if you go through, I used a recruiting agency before a long time ago, and it actually did pan out. It was for California Bank and Trust, and they liked me so much that they fired me. so that 1 year later, contractually, they could hire me directly so that their agency wouldn't take the big cut, so that they could pay me the more money, which is pretty funny. And I freelanced for them for many years. It was great. But yeah, I wouldn't have been able to have the network that I have unless I had worked corporate before, probably. I didn't realize it at the time, but like making those connections in my corporate world allowed me to build my clients that I have now.
Yeah, I totally +1 in terms of just networking for me. Every role I've ever had has come from connecting with people. So when I first started consulting, I just reached out to a bunch of other consultants because I wanted to learn about what consulting was like. And then I'd also kind of pitch like, hey, if you ever don't have bandwidth, but you want to keep your clients, I'm here to help. And so one woman who'd had a consultancy for almost 20 years, met with her, and then a couple weeks later, she ended up reaching out to me for a project. So I got a project with her, and then after that, she referred me to the role that I'm currently supporting at Adobe. So I would say like it's kind of counterintuitive to connect with consultants for work, but it's been really helpful. And I think that a healthy mindset is it's not competition, because there's more than enough work for all of us. Like, we're all unique snowflakes. And so really it's just about supporting each other.
+1 to networking. And I always think about it, and I tell my mentees, like, just think about it like you're just planting seeds, because a lot of times this happens to me too, that you go to a networking event and then it's like, nothing came from that. But something might come like 2 weeks later, a month later, or like for me, what just happened was like a year later, someone that I had a 30-minute conversation with contact me and they're like, hey, we actually have some work and we thought of you, and now I've been working with them for the last 6 months. So yeah, just plant those seeds and then just, maybe you reach back out and water them and just see what grows.
Yeah, not for this job, but previously, I remember I got my previous full-time job from just connecting with someone who was on the interview panel for a different role, and I was like, oh, this person seems cool. Like, I tried to connect with them on LinkedIn, just regardless, whether I get a job or not. And then like a role just came up. He left that company, went to a new startup, and he's like, hey, you wanna work for us? And I was like, okay, that's cool. And when I was working with him, I tried to make sure I have a good relationship with everybody, of course. And now 3 years later, he's like, okay, I'm starting my own thing. Like, I have extra work. Do you wanna get on board? And I was like, yes. So yeah, sometimes it does just happen. But while you were working, studying, doing school, doing your full-time job, projects, things like that, just always make sure to connect with people and get a good read on people, right? Like if you want to work with this person, in whatever capacity in the future, if you do vibe with them, like try to make a good impression and try to stay in touch. So opportunities sometimes just happen, but it takes time.
Yeah, definitely connect with people, but not just on LinkedIn and not just here, even though I have definitely gotten clients at SDXD and UXMKZ events, so it's not a bad place to be. But especially as somebody who did not have a minute of experience when I graduated boot camp, and I got my first client like 2 months later, and that was from a random girl I met in Hawaii who was also, she's a graphic design freelancer, but I was like, I don't know what to do, and she was like, oh, you want to build websites? Build this website, and like gave me her friends' parents. And all of my clients in that first year were like people I met at parties, people I met at coffee shops, people that I babysat 4 years ago, like random stuff. So I had to learn to talk about it like kind of all the time, which seems unappealing, but it comes up. Like if you do want to freelance, it becomes a big part part of her life, and he spent a lot of time doing it. So you never know who has a website, a company that needs your services, who needs, is like a consultant who needs support. So I'd say like talk to everybody, everywhere, all the time.
I love that, Daniela. I was just going to add to what I said earlier. Yeah, it's not just about reaching out on LinkedIn or at networking events. It's literally any strangers that you meet, friends, family. So like I am currently actually looking for full-time roles, but I told my parents. And so my dad teaches a martial arts class at a gym. And so one of his students, his wife, is a researcher. So now she's been helping me with my resume and stuff. And yeah, it's just a good reminder that I just think of it as like you're making friends with everyone. And then the more people that know can help you.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I have a similar story early in my career. I went in a job interview for a freelance gig and it didn't work out. Like the fit wasn't there, but one of the people wasn't able to be there at the interview panel. And so I actually met him for coffee a couple of days later and we super hit it off. And he told me that this job that I was going to get was awful and I wouldn't like it. And honestly, he was quitting soon. And then like 2 years later out of the blue, ironically right after the client I had gotten fired from it was an agency working for a large enterprise company, and they got fired, so I got fired, everyone got fired, and literally the next day this guy called me with this amazing gig that was like one of the highest paying freelance gigs, and it was just like this totally random connection. So it's, yeah, you be friendly to everyone because you never know. However, on the other side, not all clients are built equally. And I'd love to kind of understand if you've had the experience of ever having to fire a client or how you go about kind of vetting that this client is a good fit for what you do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that you might have.
Yeah, we all have.
Yeah.
Sure. Could be here all night, but yeah, the biggest one, again, contract was a huge tool. If a client is not willing to sign a simple designer contract, huge red flag, you dodged a bullet. Just say, okay, well, it's not negotiable, right? I had one instance where a prospective client, like we had met, everything seemed great. I told them I was sending a contract through Adobe Sign, and whoever was on the other end who was reviewing it responded so unprofessionally. They were livid that I included a late fee clause, which is very standard in a design, in any contract, claiming that they would never pay late. So why would I include that in the contract? And I'm like, but if you're not gonna pay late, then why is it a big deal? I couldn't wrap my head around it, and then the way that they were belittling me in the email. So I really dodged a bullet there because that was a huge red flag. That I said, you know what, we're not a good fit, and so yeah. And I would say, other than a contract, for sure do a Zoom in the world where you might. I mean, some clients, I just do email, but it's nice to have an initial Zoom. There was one that I felt like on paper we should have been a good fit, but when we did a Zoom, we didn't vibe at all. I didn't like. She was kind of aggressive, and I just felt kind of weird inside. And so just listen to your own intuition. If you're not feeling it, I mean, because at the end of the day, I know you might really need that gig, you might really need that job, but you might save yourself a huge headache, to just move along, and it might be for the best. So.
Yeah, and before you get to the contract, a lot of times you just talk, at least in my experience, you just talk about rates. And one thing that I always look for is if they ask for my rate and I respond, how do they respond to my rate? Yeah, if they're yeah, sounds great. I'm oh, okay, cool. They're gonna they understand the value that I'm gonna bring to them. If they're oh, I don't know, I'm gonna have to check internally, Also, yeah, the way that people act in the contracting stage is the way they're going to treat you in the design stage. So, yeah, one thing that I think all the other things are just like good people things. Like, do they have integrity? Do their words match their actions? Do their actions match their words? Are they good communicators? Like, yeah, if they're slow to respond in the contracting stage, are they going to be slow to respond to like something that's blocking you, or even like, hey, I need your feedback on this thing? Like, it's all telling. It's all the way that people act in that early stage of like interacting with them is telling of how they're going to act in a project. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm pretty brand new to the industry, so I don't really have too much under my belt, but I know you said something about volunteering. I was just wondering how you would go about like contacting somebody about volunteering, or would that be like my first approach even, or?
If you have no portfolio or like only school portfolio, you could, I tell my mentees like, a good place to start is like nonprofits. They always need people to do things for them. And you can just email them and say like, hey, like, you know, I'm reaching out to a handful of folks and like be specific about the work that you're willing to do for free, right? Like, hey, I have some time, I want to, you know, give some hours to a nonprofit that I really care about. I have 10 hours, like, do you have a project that you would like me to work on, or something like that? Yeah.
I have an add-on question to that. If we are reaching out to NGO, usually it would be like a service-based or like a website design. But what if you want to get out a product-based portfolio case study out of it? What would be a typical approach in case of volunteering?
If you want to get a case study, is that what you said?
Yeah, for like product-based.
Product-based.
Yeah.
Same, you can do the same thing. It might be a little bit more difficult to do that, like to do product-based work on on volunteering, but there are like tech nonprofits, so I think that work is out there. I do have some mentees that have volunteered with like tech companies, but it might be more like a month engagement with like 5 hours a week or something like that. I remember what my mentee did. Yeah, because product work just takes longer than like a like a marketing website or something like that.
But I'm sensing a theme, no matter free or paid, the communication and very clearly laying out what the expectations are is very important. I mean, it's always very important, but it seems extra important for freelance. Okay, so let's get back to finance, because there's a lot here. So one big thing is, as a freelancer, you're freelance, which means that sometimes you get a lot of work and sometimes there's little work. So how do you handle that feast and famine cycle?
I got really good advice from a woman who ran her own business for like 25 years, and that was, first of all, put away 30% of every single thing that you get if you're on 1099. And put it in a high yield savings account and let it grow throughout the year, so that when you have to go and pay your taxes, it isn't going to destroy your life. Not that happened to me, but it totally could, because it's just completely different than working in W-2, and you have a lot to cover. And then in the same way, like put away money if you are a time that things are going great. Like, don't act like you can just spend it all at once, because there could be times where things fall off, or maybe you do just like keep growing until you're in a super stable place, but you just never know what can happen. So treat it like, you don't know what's gonna happen. And also, if you're thinking of going into freelance and you don't have like a really solid savings, it's totally, I would recommend having a part-time job or something along the way, so you have time to put into building your business, but you have stability, because the first 2 years that I did this, I had a part-time job, many part-time jobs, a lot of jobs.
Diversify
Yeah,
your-
don't screw yourself over.
Diversify your income.
Yes.
I also have a part-time job that I work at once a week, and I would totally recommend having something that you can like turn up and turn down. So like this job that I have, like if I wanted to work more there, I could. So I mean that's really helpful. There's definitely times that I've been out of work for like months at a time, where like one contract has ended and the other hasn't started. So yeah, plus one to savings account. Also, estimated taxes, y'all. Estimated taxes. Yeah, if you don't know, Google it.
Yeah, another thing that Mary said earlier is like networking is like planting seeds. So I think keeping that rhythm of reaching out, making new contacts, staying top of mind for people so that when you do have a lull, maybe other things will start popping up.
So I heard business, and I hear like many jobs, it sounds like besides being a designer, you're also a bookkeeper, a admin, a biz dev. Am I missing other things?
Sales, marketing.
HR.
Wow. Anything else?
Parenting.
Yeah. And speaking about business, are you all individual, or do you have an incorporation like an LLC?
I said that I was gonna do a year as an individual and then I would reevaluate. And it's been 2 years and I have not incorporated. I did look into it. I think it depends on how much money you're making. It's like it's like mostly a tax thing, comes down to like a tax thing. So if you're making a certain amount of money, it makes sense to be incorporated because you get a tax break. That's my understanding. I decided not to do that.
Yeah, I actually just incorporated recently, a couple months ago, at the advice of my accountant. So he felt like I was making enough that it would be beneficial, and he was able to save me a lot in taxes as a result. Another benefit that I have heard is that from others is that it can make you look a little bit more like legitimate. So if you're wanting to get contracts with companies or other businesses, it can help there.
So, sorry, I have a question. So are we talking about marketing yourself as a company versus just like, oh, it's me, the sole proprietor, I'm gonna do your product?
It's mostly like from a tax perspective. Is the government taxing you as an individual, or are they taxing a business that you create that you operate out of?
Okay, yeah, I just meant beyond just purely marketing for marketing purposes. Like, are you guys marketing yourselves as a business, like a company? Like, I'm ABC Corp versus no, I'm Mary and I'm gonna design a product for your website.
Good question. I have not started that yet because I'm looking more for full-time roles, but yeah, that would be the idea, is to market myself as the company name, and yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like those two strategies would yield like two different results.
Yeah.
So I'm always thinking about that. I'm like, which direction should I go? Should I put my face as a company, or should I, be some like mysterious corporation?
Yeah, I think, well, what I've heard from others is that they've been able to land, I think for some larger companies at least, it's actually a prerequisite to have a business entity that they're doing the contract with.
That's my understanding as well. I actually applied for a job recently, and in the application it said like, are you willing to be compensated like B2B? And I was like, oh, okay.
I find it hard to market yourself market myself as a business rather than a person, because I'm constantly rebranding and I don't know. I can't decide on like how the best way or whatever. So I think like I've been doing this the whole time as a sole proprietor and it's been fine. But then I think if you get like bigger clients, or if you're working with like a ton of clients, it can get kind of risky too. Like you obviously don't want to be sued as an individual. And hopefully that doesn't happen at all. But yeah, for me, I don't know how you guys feel, but I have such a hard time branding myself whenever that's literally what I do for everybody else.
yeah, sometimes you wanna talk about yourself in a third person. I find that in freelancing, especially in UX, a lot of us working, tech or tech adjacent, think about it this way, like, you're going to be doing face-to-face communication, delivering projects to your client. It's kind of weird to be like, hey, so-and-so, insert your name, is going to do this and do that, and then it's just you. It's just you the entire time. It's kind of weird, right? So when we talk about incorporating or marketing yourself as like a company, like unless you have like an agency, right, where you are the owner, where you actually have other people working under the same agency, I find that's not very necessary.
But yeah, it can go both ways. I had the experience where I was contracted by a large enterprise company and I had an LLC and they wouldn't let me use it. I had to go direct. But what was also interesting is I had to go through one of their agencies. I couldn't go directly through the company. And so a different company than Salesforce was actually paying me for my services. I mean, through Salesforce, but not, I had to be separate, which is, I guess, the way of a lot of large companies. 2017?
Because, yeah, there was like a weird California AB bill. It was confusing, and a lot of companies were like really freaked out by it and weird with freelancers, and I think it's died out recently, but yeah, because I had a couple clients that were like, oh, we can only work with you if you're an LLC, and I've always been individual, proprietor, so I was like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, but yeah, this is the flip though. They wouldn't let me use my LLC. I had to go as an individual. I mean, some of the roles are just set up that way. I saw a hand over there. I think we've kind of shifted from Q&A after to just organic, so let's just roll with it. Gentleman in the back.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Thanks. So I know you talked about the importance of a contract, and I started my own business, and getting that initial contract created was like such a hard thing for me because it was really hard to find what attorney or what lawyer will help me to create a good solid contract, because I don't have the funds to continually make new ones over and over. I want just one good kind of boilerplate template that I can just repurpose over and over and over for clients. And I'm just wondering, how did you go about finding a business lawyer, someone to help you create your contract, and then afterwards when you're working with clients, how do you, if they say, hey, I don't like this part of the contract, rewrite it or edit it, what do you do? Are you doing it all yourself? Do you have somebody that you found that can help you?
Sure, that was a great question. I'm sweating because I've never hired a lawyer. So, and I'm disclaiming that I don't give legal advice either, so take it or leave it. But I have been in your situation where I have had a couple clients. They weren't being difficult. Some companies just have actual legal departments and they're going to be more particular. It doesn't mean that they're a difficult client. It just means that they have to really cross all their T's and dot their I's. And if they ask you to make a change to your contract, which might be more templated as it should be, because you don't want to spend that much time on your contracts, you just need to have them. But as long as it's a reasonable request, I've done it before. I've definitely changed a couple of things. One was net 30 versus net 45 days. Whatever. If you're going to pay me, you're going to pay me. That's fine. That was just their company rule. One was it was a project-based thing, and they, for whatever reason, were really, I think it was a college that was, they were really specific on the scope that was in the contract and the wording of it. And I was like, that's fine, So as long as it's within reason, yeah. But no, I don't have a lawyer. So.
I just Googled for a general contract and then edited it to what I wanted. I don't have a lawyer.
So I used to be a lawyer, and I also just found a template. Perfect. But I would say what's really important is to put in the contract whatever you want. You have to spell it out very clearly. So if
in the worst case, it does go to court, there is absolutely no ambiguity. Meaning like what the scope is, very clearly of your work, when it starts, when it ends if there's an end date, how much you're gonna get paid, and when. So just having like anything you want just very clearly spelled out.
I'll say I do kind of have a lawyer, but it's because one of my clients is a lawyer and we just have a good relationship now. So I used both like templates online and AI to make my contracts, and then I send them to him and I'm like, is this good? And he's like, yeah, most of the time. Or I'll change something small, but I feel like it's not as complicated as it feels like it is to have something that's solid to protect you.
So knowing what you know now, if you had to start back over today with the tools that are available today in the current landscape, would you do anything different?
That was the last question.
Yeah, that was the last question. Are you reading?
Oh, no.
I'm just kidding.
Wait, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Question,
Yeah, no, it's totally good. We're just laughing because that was.
I was like, did you read it?
Yeah. No, please. It's a great question.
So I can ask another question.
No, it's fine. If you knew then what you
what
know
we know now.
Yeah.
And with the current tools that are available, AI, so on and so forth, in the current landscape, would you do anything different?
I don't know. I mean, the world of AI is changing every day. It's hard to even like picture what it will be like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. But as far as like if I would do anything differently, like before, because I was really abrupt in my choice to go freelance. I didn't do the whole savings thing or thinking it through thing, so it was pretty rough. But honestly, when I was in corporate in that world, I hadn't even, like freelancing wasn't even on my brain. It wasn't even like a career path that I had thought of. I just pictured myself working up the corporate ladder in my career. That's just what I thought I would do. And things changed in my life. I just decided I wanted something different. So I think I would have, had I known where I would end up now, I would have actually put some thought and planning into it and definitely saved, because I had no savings and no clients when I decided to go freelance, and it was a little rough the first year for sure.
Something I wish I would have been better about in the beginning and still need to work on is closing clients. So like I'd go to networking events, I'd meet people, and then maybe we'd even like follow up and have a call and they would be interested, and then they wouldn't follow up again. I didn't follow up. And then it was just like cold. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you because I'm not good at it and I have to figure it out myself. But like, I guess make sure you're following up with those people that you have leads with. If you have leads, follow up with them. Closer.
Did you also mean like, if we would have chosen different paths, knowing about AI, like?
No, same path, but just if you were starting out today with what's available now.
Well, I can say I'd be curious if I could feed my communications with potential clients into like something like ChatGPT and maybe get a sentiment analysis which would tell me whether or not they're a good client.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question? And I was curious, someone said something a minute ago. With your portfolios, do you ever get clients based on, do you have like a review kind of thing built into your portfolio or your marketing umbrella? Have you gotten clients based off of something like that? Or do you have anything built into as a freelancer? Hey, I can go to your website or however it is and look at your portfolio and get reviews and stuff like that. Do you have that kind of thing built in?
Yeah, every time if I understand the question correctly, every time I finish a project or any long-term clients that I have no hesitation. I always ask them for a LinkedIn recommendation. I send them a direct link so they don't have to search around for it. And then I take that it's like a 5-star review, and I put it on my website under that project. So yeah. And you could use that if you do social media and stuff, you can turn it into slides and all that, yeah.
But also just a note with clients, you always want to ask them about if you're allowed to publicly show the work.
Yeah.
It seems like an obvious one, but I've seen, it hasn't happened to me, but I've seen some of my mentees make that mistake, and yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, yeah.
Something you build into the contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can always share work.
Well, yeah, you can always internally, but not
Yeah.
like on your website
Password
publicly.
protect it, or yeah. I think the best advice I ever got when I first started working was like, you should do whatever you need to do in an interview to get the job.
Oh yeah. You with who's pointing at you? Yeah.
I also have like a multi-parter, and I'm sorry. But I'm wondering, because you all do different things. I'm a product designer for context, so I'm wondering like, what kind of work? I think Mary, you're the only one that. Oh, and Harriet, what kind of work do you do, especially if you do like multiple clients? What kind of work is most common for product designers as a freelancer? And then also, this is the multi-part. For people who do websites, do you also code them, or do you just hand off design files? Or do you have engineers that you work with that are also freelancers?
My product work have been like the ongoing contracts because, yeah, I mean, it'd be really weird, I think, to like only do a project if you're working on a product. It's just like a lot to like understand what the product is, and then like, you know, you're working on, it's just like makes sense to like continue that contract. So a lot of my product work has been ongoing. And then I actually have done a few website projects as well, and those, I usually build them in like Squarespace or WordPress or something like that. So I'm not a coder, I don't code, but I would usually like build them for them.
I'm a website designer, it's probably more like 70% of the time, honestly. And it totally depends on what the client needs and the size of their business. So I've done some Squarespace. I don't recommend it if you have the choice. And like Wix, WordPress, and all of those you don't need to know how to code necessarily, but I have learned to code partially because there's like custom stuff that I want to do or my client needs. And then some companies do have a developer that I'll work with, but for websites, you just don't really need to have a developer now. Like there's so many good website builders that if you're working on like a software, you definitely need a developer or an app or a web app. But for a website, yeah, like you don't really need code these days, I think. Sorry if you're a coder out there.
So for me, this has totally been kind of random. So currently the team that I work at, it's like a platform team, and if you understand the context of like a platform, which I totally didn't, like I was just so dumb, I asked so many questions. But underneath that is like a product. Okay, what makes a good product, and how does this make people pay you money, and how does this serve customers? And okay, I was like, okay, that's something I understand. And if I do other freelancing work, I try to look for that because I understand what that's about. If you want me to make a website, sure I can do that. I can code, but like that's just not something that I'm super interested in doing. So it totally depends on your skill set, what you're comfortable with, and like spell everything out like in a contract because I've had jobs and contracting gigs where it's like, okay, I'm designing. Oh, like you asked me to like also build it. So you don't want to be surprised ever when you are taking on work because you want to represent your best work, your best self, and so you can keep the relationship going. So don't ever do something you're not comfortable with. But don't be afraid to like branch out, just like learn. Right? Once you're ready, you're ready.
So on the topic of learning, as a full-time employee, we often take for granted that we have sort of built-in learning and development and, just that more organic of your coworkers sharing information about new trends and stuff. But I'm curious, as a freelancer, how do you go approach learning and development and stay up to date?
spend a lot of hours on Twitter.
And I'm so happy you still call it Twitter.
I think sometimes freelancing gives you more time and opportunity to learn. I don't know, I guess maybe I'm not the best person to answer this because I haven't worked for a company full time. But yeah, like if I have free time, I can take a course, or if I need to learn something, I'm doing so many new projects all the time. Every single project I have to learn like a completely new thing that I didn't even know existed before. So it forces you really to be like, oh, I have to deep dive on this, and that's something you also work into your hours a little bit. Obviously, you don't want your client paying for you to experiment for 10 extra hours or something. But if you know, like, okay, like I'm gonna have to do some learning here, give yourself some padding, because that's something that anybody, I'm sure, does in their role, no matter what it is, full time or not.
I haven't found it to be that different. Like, certain companies have certain tools or expectations or processes, and whether you're full-time or contracting, like, you have to learn those things. And then also, like, the design industry is constantly changing, so yeah, if you're gonna do the work, you have to keep up. Config is great. Figma is changing so fast all the time. And yeah, Config, their conference is like so great, and I think all their videos are online, so for me it's a great way to like keep up with those kinds of changes. In terms of AI, I feel like I've experimented a little, probably need to experiment more. But from what from what I've experimented with, it's like doesn't really meet my expectations yet.
Yeah, I came from a company where there was a really big research community, and so it was a really good training ground. I had access to a huge repository of research. There were a ton of training materials. Everyone was very open to talking and helping you out. So yeah, it's a little different now. I do webinars, but I think most of my learnings have come from talking to other people. Like, I just talked to someone today, and I shared a little bit about my context and what I was trying to do, and she helped me brainstorm, and it was so helpful. So, yeah.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I'm sure you gotta have like a close friend, colleague, or at least a couple to bounce ideas off of, like, in person, aside from just e-learning, like looking at, everything online. But that's what makes a huge, because you're siloed as a freelancer. You don't have your coworkers, so, and your friends and family aren't gonna like get what you're doing at work. So
yeah, and that segues great into my next question, which is about sort of for those people who have worked in-house but as a contractor, what is that experience like, and sort of what did it, for those who've been full-time as well, what's sort of the differences between being a contractor inside a company versus a full-time employee?
Oh, go ahead.
One of the benefits is that what we mentioned earlier, which is like you don't have to be involved in all the office drama or like politics. But I think one of the downsides is that at least my experience has been like, I haven't been as involved in like strategy conversations, and for me, I really like that, especially like when thinking about like the long-term strategy of the product or like growth. And so a lot of times my experience in contracting is that I'm brought more in on the execution side of like, we've decided to build this or we've decided this. And so, yeah, that's, again, it has its pros and cons, but I feel like that's been kind of a bummer for me because I really like the strategy side.
Yeah, I totally get that. At one job, I was actually, the employer called me a mercenary, which, a mercenary? Like, just there to hit the ground running and do the work and then get out, basically. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I won't say the name of the company, but it rhymes with Aylesbury.
So like for me, since I am a contractor right now, like I want to say day to day, there are things you're just not like really included in. So like strategy, And sometimes like certain office events or things like that you're not a part of. You know, sometimes I have coworkers, you know, who are like, hey, here's this cool thing. It's like a e-learning, it's like a lunch and learn. Oh, you weren't on the list because it's someone from, you know, a different department or someone from a different group that's sending out the invite. Sometimes you're not included on that like full-timer like list. So I get forwarded some stuff. Some stuff I go to, some stuff I just can't really go to. So yeah, you're gonna feel like you're not really part of the team. So that's just something you have to like expect and prepare for. Like, you know, don't take it personally, it's not that personal. At least for me right now, for example, I don't have like, you know, kind of that very like corporate, like, oh, like one-on-one, like, you know, weekly thing happening. Which is why, you know, sometimes I'm just like, wait, what is happening? Oh, okay, we're done Q2 planning, like, you know, without like a one-on-one. I'm like, what is the quarter right now? Like, you know, what season are we in? Like, sometimes I just lose track of that. So sometimes you're like, okay, this is great. Like, you know, I'm just here to do work and get paid and leave. Sometimes you might not enjoy that feeling, so it's just something you want to prepare for. And, you know, if you have a good relationship with your manager, you know, sometimes you can mitigate that a little bit just by establishing a good, you know, personal relationship. Sometimes that just doesn't happen, but, you know, again, don't take it personally, you know, get paid and, you know, do
So they expect me to also be full-time, even though they only want to pay me for part-time. So a big learning lesson for me doing this has been really setting strong boundaries. Which has been hard to do because I think like part of me, I don't want to feel like, I don't want to be perceived as like lazy or like I'm not in it to live with everyone. But also, yeah, setting expectations. Like, if you want me more, I'm here, but you gotta pay me.
Yeah, and it's super important because if you work full-time at half time, then you're getting paid half as much, which is not fair, not cool. Okay, I think we have time for maybe 2-3 more questions. So the person in the striped sweater.
I'm just curious, as a freelancer, what's the onboarding process like when you start a new project? Is it just a kickoff meeting, or are you reading documents? What's that process like?
Like for me, because a lot of mine have been longer term, it's like, okay, let's start with one project. Like a very specific, well-defined project is best, so that you can kind of get the lay of the land and like understand the background of the product. And then after that, you're just, I don't know. My experience is early stage where you're just kind of thrown in and just like, just pick it up, you got it.
That's it. What is your typical process once you onboard the client, and how do you hand off? Do you also get to interact with the developers? If so, what kind of resources and to what extent do you hand off? Like, what material do you give your raw design files, or?
Yeah, it's different. It's been different depending on the client. I think ideally it's like meet with them once a week on a regular cadence, where we like talk about the work that I did the previous week and then talk about the work for the next week, and they give me feedback. And then the engineer may be there or they may not. Maybe like the role that I'm in right now, the PM is there, and then they're kind of like relaying with engineering. Handoff, again, my experience early stage, so there's not a lot of processes. So handoff is literally just like, this Figma mockup is ready, here you go. But the engineer might like put some comments in Figma for me, or like tag me, or we might like chat over Slack or something like that. I've been in a few meetings with them, but I don't interact with the engineers as much with the client project I'm on right now.
Do you, like, once you get a requirement, do you do any kind of research or like secondary research to justify your thought processes? Do they ask for the, like, do the client ask for it, or do you do as part of your process to give the best result for them?
Depends on the project. If it's like a new feature, maybe some more research of like, oh, like what are other similar products or features that are out in the world or like competitors, I might do some of that secondary research. But if it's like a smaller thing, or if it's like an update or like just UI, then probably not. It's probably just like quick, get it done.
Okay, you will be our last question over here.
Awesome. Thank you guys for taking the time to share your experience. This has been so helpful. You guys talked earlier about planting seeds to keep your networks alive. It sounds like the big rec is like be persistent, be present, but don't be annoying. Those are all like good things to shoot for, but I would love to hear some specific examples of things you do in a normal week to keep your network healthy.
I think you can be annoying. I think what you feel is annoying usually is like not even enough, because people forget there's like you're not the only thing that they're doing at their company. But a normal week, I always say if I this week, for instance, only have 20 hours of work or something, then I will make myself spend the other 20 hours looking for clients. At the stage that I'm at now, like I do get referrals from clients and stuff, but just in case, like you can never have too many. And yeah, putting yourself out there as much as possible. LinkedIn actually is shockingly helpful. And I do things like, this might be like a little bold, but I made like a sign with my QR code on it and went to an event and stood outside when people were leaving the event so they could scan it, and like things like that. I don't think there's too much you can do. Like sometimes those bold things will get you like people that you never thought before, and that's something that I 3 years ago would have probably like never mentally thought of. So that's crazy advice.
I'd also add that like the impression that you leave on your clients matters almost just as much, if not more, than the work you do for them. I cannot tell you how many times I've been told, like over the last decade, that the last designer we hired some agency or whatever, that they were so rude and they were so difficult to work with. Unfortunately, like a lot of designers get really bad raps. So when you are just your natural, like pleasant self and easy to work with, it doesn't mean you have to be a doormat, but like if you can really be good at your customer service and pleasant and professional, that makes them want to keep coming back to you and to refer you. So that's a life lesson I've learned, in my business.
And that will be the life lesson that we'll remember as the end of this panel, because we do need to wrap it up. But thank you all so much. Let's give a big hand for our panel.